Hello and welcome to the Fit Clinic. Today I'm going to be talking about a coat that I made for Scout that on first glance kind of looks like it fits her quite well. But I'm going to show you that once she starts moving, there's some real problems with this coat. So let me flip to the photograph so you can see what I'm talking about. This is the coat that I made for Scout. And as you can see, in general, it looks like it fits her okay. There's a little paw print that's at the back of the coat, and that is lining up nicely on her spine, so it's quite even. She's got a nice big belly wrap around behind the front legs, and that looks like it's positioned in the right place. And there's a little bit of a chest covering here. So let me show you the construction of the coat. This coat has a Velcro strap that goes around the belly area, and this is a nice wide strap, so it covers a really good portion of Scout's rib cage. And this is the front chest section, and this wraps around the chest area on the front of her legs. This goes in behind the legs, and this goes on the front of the legs. And this is made out of a stretch fabric, so it has a little bit of stretch to it and some give, so it should stretch and move with Scout. But I want to show you what happens when Scout sits down. So what happens, because Scout has a really big, deep rib cage, the whole coat, because it's a bit too small for her in the chest section here, you can see that it's starting to push up. It's all starting to kind of bunch up towards her neck area. And you can see these wrinkles. These wrinkles here on the chest panel actually kind of continue on into the back panel. And when you see wrinkles like this, particularly when they're very folded over, that shows you that there's a real stress point there. Now, this coat has two anchor points to it. One of them is around the front chest area, and the second anchor point is around the belly area. So let me show you the next picture. What happened here, this picture is after Scout has done some playing around and some moving. And take a look at that little paw print that's on the back of the coat. See how it's shifted over? This should be lined up with her spine. This should be lined up with her tail and the back area, but you can see the whole coat has shifted over. This here is the corner on the top, on the left side of the coat, and this is the right side of the coat, and the right side is draping quite a bit lower on her side because the whole back end has shifted. Now, in general, I'm going to show you a video of Scout playing in this coat, and in general, the coat doesn't slide too much side to side because this coat has a nice wide belly on it, as I showed you in the other photographs. This belly is quite deep on her, and it covers a really good portion of her rib cage. So that is actually saving it from sliding too far side to side. But let's take a look at that video. I'll show you what happens once she starts playing. So as I start playing this, you can see this is starting to bunch up on the front chest area. See how it's wrinkling and bunching up in the chest area there? And then also take a look at that back little paw print. It's, as I said, it's not super obvious on this coat. It's not really sliding side to side because of this wide belly band. But if you try to catch and watch that paw print, you'll see just even how much, when a dog plays and a dog walks, how much that back end of the coat is shifting. So take a look and just keep an eye on that paw print as she plays around. You can start to see some of these wrinkles are forming on the coat, and so as she's playing and in this coat, I want you to just kind of keep an eye on these wrinkles, because again, as I said earlier, wrinkles really start to show where the stress points are on that coat. And if they're really defined, if they're rolled over and folded almost, that is probably uncomfortable on the dog. So you want to kind of watch out for where the coat is folding and wrinkling on the dog. So as we start to play forward here, again, watch that little paw print and how it's shifting around on her backside as she plays. The other thing I want to just pause here and show you. This really shows you how deep, how wide that belly band is. And see how this kind of, you can see this fold here, this little as the jacket is kind of folding. That shows you, I'm going to show you this on the overhead camera in more detail, but this shows you this point where the coat is attached to the belly area. You can see that point on, you can sort of follow the motion of that connection point there. And what's happening is anything that's behind that connection is what is shifting side to side. So if this coat had a really narrow band on it, if it was not nearly as wide as this, that little point there that you can see would be way up here. And then this whole back end would shift even more side to side. So that's an area there that you can watch when you're making your dog coats. And then the last thing I just wanted to show you is this bunched up area on the chest. Remember how when you first looked at that photograph, the chest, this section here was covering most of her chest? This area here used to cover all of this area down here. It was way down further on her chest, but as she started to play, because it was so tight in here, it got all bunched up into the neck area. So that causes a lot of discomfort and kind of a strangling effect on the dog's neck. So let me move to the overhead camera because I wanted to show you what's going on here with the dog coat on my stuffed dog. As you can see, I've got the coat on the dog. This is the same coat that's in the video, and it doesn't exactly fit the dog perfectly. It's a little long on the back end, but it'll give you an idea. I want to just kind of walk through some of these points that I made in the video. So first of all, in general, let's say that this coat fits the dog okay. It's covering her chest. It's got a belly band that's going around the waist, and it's in generally the right place in behind her front legs. However, as we started to notice in the video, as she started playing, as the dog's legs are moving and they're jumping and they're running and they're doing all sorts of things, this starts to shift because it's too tight. And what happens is it starts bunching up around the chest and it gets really around the neck, and it gets really uncomfortable for the dog around here. And as you can see these wrinkles are starting to point to where a problem is when it's pulling forward. And the other thing I want to show you, let's get this back, as the dog's playing and moving, and this starts moving forward, watch what happens with the coat. The whole coat starts to move forward too. So this anchor point on the chest and the neck area of the dog is pulling everything forward, and that causes the back end to start to shift. And it also causes a lot of uncomfort for the dog. As this pulls forward, this belly band starts to pinch in behind these front legs on the dog. So this can become a real problem when it's not working properly. Now, one of the things about this coat is it has a really nice wide belly band on it. Most dog coats are much skinnier. They're usually about this big. So as this point here, as I mentioned in the video, this point here, if it's narrower, then this back end has a bigger chance of moving around from side to side. See this point here, where the coat joins the belly band, that is the pivot point. And you saw that in the video. As she's playing and running around, this part is moving around. But assuming that this belly band, and if you've got Velcro on it, assuming that that fits the dog properly, this is going to stay anchored on her body, but this starts to move around. But imagine if that pivot point was up here because you had a narrower band. Once that pivot point comes up here, more of that back end of the coat is able to shift around. And what happens is that once it starts shifting around and gravity starts pulling it, it can start to shift around so that the back end is just kind of draping over the dog like that, and their tail and their back end of their dog, the spine is all becoming uncovered. And this happens a lot. I've seen this on a lot of dogs as they're playing. So the fix for this, if you were going to fix this dog coat, it's pretty simple. What I'm going to do, and I've already started this process, is I'm going to take this section out here and I'm just simply going to replace it with a bigger area, a bigger piece of fabric. And the way that I figure out how big this fabric needs to be is I'm going to measure the chest width on the dog. So the chest width on the dog is this area between the widest points on the dog's chest. So from here to here. So I would take my measuring tape and run it across the widest point from outside of each leg and get that measurement. And that measurement, which is approximately 11 inches on here, I would make sure that this piece here on the coat is 11 inches wide. And that will really help to make sure that this doesn't start to push up as she's playing. The neck circumference on Scout is pretty good. It's a bit tight on this dog, but everything on this dog isn't quite the right fit. It's good on Scout on this coat, so I wouldn't change the top portion, but I would change this section down here so it's a bit wider. The other important measurement that you want to make sure is just that you have enough depth to cover this area here. So you can take a measurement from the neck area. The front height measurement runs straight through those front paws. This dog is not exactly cooperating for this measurement, but you'd run it from where the collar normally sits on the dog through the front legs and down to the widest point on the belly. So if I open these legs up a little bit, you can see better. You'd run it down to the widest point on the chest of the dog. And you can find that chest depth area where its widest point on her is by running from that withers point down. So that'll give you an idea of what that chest depth is. So you'd run down the widest point. And while you're looking at the underbelly of the dog, you might as well measure the belly length. And that's going to give you an idea of how deep you can make this panel for the belly area. If you've got a male dog, you've got to make sure that you're away from this area here because you don't want them peeing on their coat. If you have a female dog, you can make it a little longer. But just make it as wide as you can so it's not getting in the way of going to the bathroom, and it's not getting in the way of those legs pivoting. So you can just make it as wide as you want, and the longer that this width is, the less this back area is going to pivot. So those are two fixes that I would do for this coat, and I've already started it. As I said, all you need to do is just open up the back end of the coat or some place where you've got a flat opening on the area. Then you could turn the whole coat inside out and start to pull out the stitches up here. These stitches that I plan to pull out, once it's inside out, I can get access to those stitches and I can start to pull it all out like that. Take those out and then sew a new piece in that's the right width and then close this back up again. Turn it back right side out and then just sew that panel back in again and you're good to go. So that's a really simple fix for you to fix a coat that is shifting side to side. Now the one last thing that I do want to say about this is if you found that your dog coat is shifting back and so forth on side to side on the back end of the dog, but these two areas feel to you like they're okay. They seem like they fit okay. You're not getting a lot of wrinkling and pulling and bunching. If that's okay, but this is still going from side to side, one of the things you can do is add some elastic straps here. So I'm just going to use my measuring tape as an example. You would attach the strap to the underneath of the coat there, run it underneath that dog's leg, and then attach it again to the back end of the coat. And what that does is it just anchors the back end of that dog coat to the dog. And you don't want to make these super tight. You don't want to make this impinging on the dog as they move, but just having a little bit of an anchor there. And you do want to do it out of elastic so it's nice and stretchy, but that'll give you a little bit of an anchor. And I would do that on both sides of the coat. Okay, well, hopefully that gives you an idea of how you can fix the dog coat and some ideas of what you can do at the pattern level. And as I've always said in every one of these lives, if you ever have any questions, if you have any problems with a dog coat that you've made, or perhaps you're just working on a pattern and you don't know how to adjust the pattern to fit the measurements of your dog, please let me know. You can either add comments down below and I'll respond to the comments, Or I put my email in the description so that you can use that email and send me a private message and maybe even some photographs. Send me a photograph of the pattern that you're working on if you're just at the pattern stage, or if you've made a garment for your dog and you can see some of the problem areas on it. Send me those along as well, because I love hearing where the problems are that you guys are actually dealing with, and I can help to solve those for you. So I go live every Thursday. Again, feel free to send me your comments ahead of time and I'd be happy to deal with those problems when I go live. In the meantime, till next Thursday, have a great week and we'll see you next week. All right, bye-bye.